I'm going to, so Hilde is going to have to leave us soon, so we'll just let her sit when she is. I just want to kind of recall a situation, and you reminded me very much of that, Ragnhild, with your, almost odyssey in your professional life. You have, many people, maybe especially girls, believe that you have to know exactly what you want to do. And at least I, when I was 17, 18, had absolutely no idea. I mean, you have to try different things until they grow on you, and you shouldn't be afraid of going, as you say, both outside of your comfort zone, but also outside of what you think is your compass direction, your true north, because that's how you will learn what you really, really care about and how you like to work. And when I had to start hiring people, I asked a colleague, how do I do this? I mean, how do I know? If they are a good person for this job. And they say, well, you really need to find out just 3 things. Are they going to be able to do the job? Are they going to be liking to do this job? And are you going to like working with them? And this really sums it up. So I would like to ask you in your journey, so your early stage, you two ladies have come very far. Have you made any decisions you regretted, and how have you navigated? I think maybe we'll start with you. You are very young, but at the same time you have done an amazing amount of things. So why did you decide to go on this journey?
That's a really loaded question. I don't think I've lived long enough to regret anything just yet. I mean, there's still time. But in terms of why I sort of pursued what I did, I think it's just, when I was little, I just honestly, just a completely honest answer, I thought space was really cool. And I thought stars were really pretty, and I was asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? You can do literally anything. I said, okay, I want to see stars. And people said, okay, well, that's a lot of work. You have to, you have to go to school, you have to get good grades, you have to pursue a really hard field, all of these things. And I just went, yeah, well, that's like 4 or 5 things. I'm sure I can fix that, And those 4 or 5 things are, they're daunting, but that's sort of, I guess, why I did it. It's just because I thought something was really interesting, and I was lucky to see that I was right when I was a kid, and I haven't yet changed my mind. But I'm open to the fact that, I can, and I might find a different niche that I think is more interesting or appealing, but I've been right so far, and I'm really happy about that.
I'll reposition my question just a little bit, because I've always been, a diligent, hardworking girl. And I met an old friend this summer, and her first comment was, Sylvia, you used to be such a nerd, and now you're becoming cool. And I'm like, I was actually quite proud of being a nerd. I really don't mind working hard, and to be honest, I also don't mind the sacrifices. I mean, you have to give up on some things, but it's about enjoying what you do. So maybe Eva and Ragnhild, I would like to ask you, shall I start?
My name is Rebecca.
Rebecca, I'm sorry, I keep calling you Ragnhild.
Yeah, I know.
Because of another Ragnhild with a similar surname.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry. Ragnhild Wigborg. So Rebecca, do we feel bad about being nerds?
I always
and we feel bad about sacrifices that we had to make, maybe to pursue the way we've done.
I'm not sure about the sacrifices, but I do, on the question of regrets, I do have some, or not regrets, but I wish if I could go back, I probably would have skipped that actuary part, because I figured out quite fast that wasn't for me. So I think it wasn't that long, and it was a good learning, but still, I probably would have chosen differently. And then also, both in school and also in my first jobs, I think I would have gone, since I'm now an engineering leader, I think I would have gone even more technical early on. And that's what I kind of tell my young people in my team, that really focus on being super technical those first years. Because at least if you're going to stay in engineering or in AI and tech, and having those technical skills, you will just always kind of be very useful for you. No matter if you go become a manager, or if you're going to grow the kind of engineering track, or if you're going to do like product later, or whatever you're going to do, you're going to get so much back from that. So I think I would have, and I done even more of that early on. Yeah.
And you, Eva?
Well, let's go back. I mean, I wanted to be a musician. I never thought I would be in Norway or I run the research unit of this company. Never. So I wanted to be a musician. I was actually prepared. I was going to school to become a violinist player. And after a while, I understood that I'm not going to be the best violinist player because I just can't. I had no skills, enough skills, and I didn't want to play in orchestra. So I made a choice, and then I wanted to be a diplomat. And then I studied for being actually my bachelor in political science, and I went to Brussels to be a diplomat. At that time, Lithuania was entering the EU, and I really wanted to be one of the first diplomats in Brussels. And then I went there, and I realized that's boring. I don't really want to be there. It's just so boring. And I went
Lots
back.
of drinking and
No, but serious, and it's about making these. Don't be afraid to make some tough choices.
Yeah,
and I really, and if you look at my career, I mean, my background is just a mess. I have a bachelor in political science. I have a master in European public administration. I have a PhD in strategy and M&A, and I work on AI. I don't code, but I work with AI, people, actual organization. So my point is, never be afraid to make changes. And I'm not a nerd, but I really love working with nerds. I really enjoy. That's really my passion.
I think there is a really, really important point here, and it is that your career doesn't have to be linear. And actually, if you do have these kind of jumps, between tracks, it's not that they add up, but they multiply. And I've also wondered quite a bit, and was a very kind of programming theory-focused computer scientist, and then I went into more kind of theoretical other things in maths, and then I did my MBA, and now I work with companies, and I dabble a little bit in politics, and I think it's by having these many perspectives that you actually become unique. And so curiosity is a great thing, but also you all three ladies said something that I really would like you to kind of reflect just a little bit on. And you said two things about your choice, in a way, about the algorithm that drives you. Show your motivation and then do a good job at that job. Don't just wish for the next.
Yeah.
So I think very often we are a little bit afraid to show that we are very motivated to do something or to act like you do. We perceive it's maybe not very feminine to be very ambitious or to be pushy or to be nerdy or call it what you wish. Well, has it ever bothered you? Maybe I'll start with you.
Okay.
Or obviously not, but...
I don't think it's ever really bothered me because the only people that think that being ambitious or valuing discovery is unfeminine are people that I don't want to associate myself with. So I don't really have them in, I guess, my circle. But no, I've always seen it as something that I can sort of do both, I guess. And I've always had like little parts of, I guess, my girlhood or femininity with me. When I gave a TEDx talk in Arendal back in 2022, there were a lot of really interesting and intimidating people, and I got up on the stage and I did my thing and I got off, and I looked down my wrist and I had a bunch of these like friendship bracelets on, and there was one woman, a mentor, backstage with me, and I went, oh, that's embarrassing, I didn't even realize I was still wearing them, I should have taken them off. And she just went, don't think that. I mean, imagine how many girls might watch that TED Talk afterwards and think it's really cool that you're wearing exactly what they might be wearing, as they're sitting there watching you. And that's like a little piece of, I guess, that really resonated with me, like keeping your girlhood with you and like carrying on, I guess. I don't really see an issue with that, so yeah.
So many women might also wonder, is it too hard to combine with family? All of you have shown, well, two of you have shown pictures of kids, etc. Do you find anything in our biology that's making it harder?
To me, I have a very, I don't, again, we're very, I guess I have a husband that's, he enjoyed taking lots of time off. And so we, I don't know, really split things 50-50. And of course it's hard, like, but I feel like, I don't know if you think the same and you as well, but after having children, you just become so much focused. You have this time at work and then you spend it at work. You don't, I'm not saying you slack off before you have kids, but I do feel like you become more effective. And then also what's also nice is that those kids, they require a full attention, right? So when you do get home to them, you can't be thinking about work or checking your email or phone or whatever. You need to be in the moment with them. So in a way, they're the perfect kind of distraction after a kind of hectic day. So I think I don't have 4 kids though, like you do, but with 2, I think it works okay. Of course, it's hectic, but yeah, I don't know. What's your experience?
Yeah, so partner is very important.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, for both sides, I don't only mention for women, for men as well, how women actually supports in his or her career. So for me, if he listens to me, he's now skiing, not in Norway, but if he listens to this, I would just want to give a big thanks to him for actually allowing me to pursue my dreams, because this is really a duo.
Yeah.
And in my life, it was times where he actually had to step up, and there were times where I had to step up. So we really have a very strong, I think, partnership on that. But one thing I want to mention about leaders, I was very lucky to have fantastic leaders. And one of my bosses asked me when he hired me, it was a very strange question. He said, but is your partner with you? Is he going to support you? And I was like, you're hiring me at this job. Why are you asking me? And then I understand why. Because it was a very important message that if you have one that supports you, you're going to make a good job. And it's true. And it's both ways. So I'm really lucky to have a good partner. My kids have probably suffered a lot. Somewhat, but also very happy have my boy actually chose to be a data scientist and studies in the University of Oslo in robotics. So I'm very, very happy that probably there's some continuation of that in my journey. So partner is very important. Leaders are very important as well.
I second that point as well, because I had both. I have had a leader that kind of held me back, and then I made a change. And then, especially when I came to Cognite, I just were surrounded by leaders that believed in me more than I kind of dared to do myself. Coming back to your question about daring to be ambitious and speaking up about it, because I agree we shouldn't like think about it, but it's like it, and then going to some of those meetups and hearing people say, oh, you know, people just came and pointed to me, you should be leading this team. And then, I don't know, having leaders that then kind of drive you up and kind of make it okay for you to talk about your ambitions and what you want to do next. Yeah, it's really important.
I can only underline or agree with your statements. I think it's really important to choose wisely, both in terms of your boss and your husband. And maybe in that order. I was in Silicon Valley for a while, and I had a realistic opportunity to stay there, and I very consciously chose to come back to Norway. Actually, I had a really hard time convincing my husband, who's very Norwegian, to go with me abroad. And he has a family history of things not going so well abroad. And so he was definitely not going. And then eventually he came, and when he was out of Norway, he said, well, now that I'm here, we might as well go somewhere nice and warm. So after Oxford, he wanted to go to Australia or California. And I spent some time in Silicon Valley and realized that you can have a great career, or you can have a private life, interesting private life, but you can't have both there, at least. And Norway is one of the very, very few places in the world where you can combine an interesting professional life with an interesting, valuable, holistic personal life. And it's such a great gift. And we need to be happy that we can do that, and maybe not worry so much about board positions during our
Can I also add? 'Cause,
maternity leave.
Also, I just want to second it, and also kind of coming from startups and quite small startups, you could think that that's not possible, but in that, and of course, you should probably check it because I guess startups are different. But in Norway, you can work in a small startup that, I don't know, and you can have a family. And in the where I will live or work now, there's tons of us with small kids, and it's fine. So I think that's really great about Norway, that it's possible to combine.
I want to go a little bit in the direction of what Hilde was talking about. So I have an observation. I met some of these best friends I have from my time as a Termvakt, as a computer assistant at the University of Oslo. And they were the best friends you can have in this world, but they were like very nerdy. and it was lovely to see them. And then very quickly they started talking about cars and computers, and I was sitting there and thinking, oh, I didn't miss this actually. And there is a difference in my mind about them being fascinated by technology, and class arrest me if you disagree, while girls being more interested in what you can do with the technology. So it's the application of it, whether it's in healthcare or in business or in law or in whatever your passion is, it's a tool, while I think guys are a little bit more interested in building the tool itself. I don't know if you have any perspectives on that.
I think, at least as a general part, I think it's a good point, and it might, I don't have the stats on it, but just now thinking about my team, it sounds a bit familiar with who is very into what kind of API technology should we choose versus kind of focusing on how much is the sustainability element of applying these models for the meat industry. But of course, I don't have the stats on it, but it sounds very plausible.
I don't like to generalize typically, so I would not do that. But I think we are underestimating the diversity here. It's not only the gender that matters. I can give you my example. When I came to Telenor and to that position, and when I was given an opportunity to lead an AI team, I was a woman among the majority of male. I was a non-Norwegian among the majority of Norwegians. My age was not at the age average of my colleagues that I had to lead. I was not really skiing well. I'm joking, but I can continue. So there is a much more complex and deeper concept of diversity. And how did I react? I mean, because let's face it, we all face biases of some sort. So not only being a woman, but also a man. So I always try to think, so what is the uniqueness that you bring to the cohort that you're working with? What is that you bring, be it an adoption of AI or developing APIs? You all are unique. We are all unique. So I think changing that mindset in some teams, which were very dominated in one way or another from different non-diverse, it's very important. So that's one point. So never give up. You stand out, you say. And I was actually saying many times to all different levels of Telenor management, I don't like it. You discriminate me, and if I discriminate, tell me. So this is very important. I know it's hard because you need some psychological safety to be able to say it. But I think, if you feel that's the right way of saying, and the right, of course, you don't shout it in the front of the kind of the annual meeting, but you do, please do that. And the second learning I also want to share, in Telenor Research and Innovation Unit, we have today 20% women only. And it's a very sad number. I would like actually definitely to increase, and we're working hard. But what I noticed is that when you hire a woman, a data scientist, a machine learning engineer, there is some sort of humbleness in not being visible. So you really need to do extra to say you are good. And it's good not to be perfect. So typically, I sometimes see that for some reason, we as human, want to be everything perfect until we actually say things, rather than just say things, and then you can make it work. So a lot of empowerment, actually more empowerment needed, role models, encouraging,
Yeah.
absolutely important. So, but don't give up. Stand up for what you believe in, and I'm really happy to hear that it comes from your heart. And tell that, because you cannot just wait until someone will realize that's how it is.
So several things that I think are really worth underlining. One is that it doesn't have to be all about tech or STEM or AI. It is about combining it with many things, and it's your unique way of doing that will probably be the builder of your career direction, at least. And then I think women often are a little too perfectionist when it comes to themselves. And we are very good at focusing what we still, the 1% that we don't have or the 10% that we don't have. Well, I think that men have more of a, at least body language confidence where, that doesn't matter really. So this is what I bring. And
Yeah, and just on following up on that, and also on your point, because I agree about not generalizing, but at the same time, we should also see that there are differences. And then I had a colleague that often said we shouldn't kind of expect the minority, which is kind of women in tech in this situation, to change and be like men, or be like the majority, or any other minority. So then if we know that in general, not all, women need more encouragement or need more of something, we should give them that, because maybe that's, I don't know, their nature, that's what they need.
I want to ask now a little bit about AI. So the fascinating thing about AI is the speed of development. And really, it's now from week to week that there is a quantum leap in some aspects of AI. And AI is very, very much more than ChatGPT. And my hypothesis here is that there is actually a very nice opportunity for women. This is the perfect kind of combination tool. Whatever your background is or whatever your super interest is, this is the tool that will make you super efficient, differentiate you, and there is a huge opportunity for learning. What do you think? Let's start with you, Ayla.
Sure. Well, like I already kind of iterated, I think that AI can be a really useful tool for creating and propagating equality in society. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how we can sort of develop and use that technology to see the future that we've always sort of wanted to create in a more accelerated fashion. But what I think is interesting about AI as opposed to other technologies is that it sort of mirrors society very directly, because you can't get mad at technology for showing you a man if you ask for a CEO, because it's just using and compiling input that we've given it. So really it's like, it's a mirror up to society and can be a little bit of a slap in the face, but I think it's kind of what we need to realize that there needs to be change enacted, right? And so I think it's something that it's almost as if the technology we're developing is something we have to work together with in order to produce something new and groundbreaking that's actually going to be able to change society. And I think that's not something that we've really had before. When we've produced the first smartphone, we didn't expect it to teach us how to communicate, you know what I mean? So I think that's definitely really interesting, and I'm excited to see how we can apply that and how I might be able to see AI in more than just seeing people ask it to write their essays for them, you know?
But it's mirroring society, but it's also extending those
Yeah,
changes.
definitely.
So if we kind of just say, oh, but that's how society is, no, AI will make that even further. Like, so wasn't it Amazon or someone who wanted to have AI do CV scanning, and based on their past experience, they just say, oh, if this is a woman, we'll just disregard you. You know, they won't even, because that was how, we don't know why AI make the decision it does, or that, at least in that case. So kind of we can't just say, or to me that's kind of we have to challenge that is, yeah, it's mirroring society, but it's making those differences or those changes, even larger. So
Yeah.
yeah.
The thing about it is that, like, it's showing us exactly what we need to work on, but without sort of that human filter of like sugarcoating things or disguising it. So it's just showing us very like black on white what the situation is, and it's up to us to sort of work together with it to change that. So it's really like, I guess, challenging the boundaries that we've set for us, right? Because we might not explicitly say that, oh, well, everybody expects to see a man in that role, but, you know, a computer doesn't have the ability or the idea to think that, oh, I can't say that, that's too direct, I have to be a little bit more passive and reserved. So I think it's an interesting way to sort of challenge the boundaries like you were talking about and change sort of how we see tech and stuff like that.
There's one thing that I'm hoping for a lot with generative AI revolution is that it will democratize AI to a level that it will be more and more inclusive. If you ask yourself, everyone, what are your kids, no matter whether it's a girl or boy, how much AI are they exposed to today? And versus how much AI have they been exposed 5 or 10 years ago in yourself? You will see a dramatic difference. So I just hope on the one hand, we will actually make, you know, the site will be more inclusive because they will just be from the early days accessible. But there is a very huge but. We still need to do the work because there are some stereotypes that will not just fly away. And then there are some kind of, as we've heard today, this, you know, from the professor, I mean, there are some you know, embedded features or sort of unique traits about the female that we really need to make either more role models or hit them at the right time or explain even the first years, I mean, or secondary schools, kind of how technology can make a life different. So I hope it will be more inclusive. I think this is because of the democratization that we have from the small ages. But I also believe that, you know, hopefully people like you and many others can actually create that awareness that this is actually cool.
So with AI, we have this thing called simultaneity without parity, and from some of the boards where I am, I see that there is that jump now into applying it, and it's moved from R&D into actual kind of production operations. And I want to ask you, how are you learning about AI? Because it seems a little bit overwhelming, right? It's a very complex field. It's quite heavy maths or heavy tech. There are all these worries about ethics and, you know, the energy consumption, etc. So from what I've been listening to in both your talks and now discussion, I catch two ways about it. One is taking Coursera courses, not wait until you go to a data science master's degree, but basically find content out there. And the other one is basically find a project. How do you learn about AI, and what is your recommendation to our friends in the audience?
I'm big on finding content that exists and sort of just doing research like on your own spare time, because that's sort of what I think is the most interesting and engaging, especially if you don't really have the tools to perform experiments like on your own. Just learning and trying to read and expand your, I guess, knowledge and field of interest as well. I find that a lot of it might be a little bit inaccessible, especially if you don't have a degree or a PhD in that field. But what you can do is you can sort of keep broadening your horizon, and the more you read about things, the more you're going to notice that certain words are sort of being repeated or certain concepts keep coming up and again, and you're going to familiarize yourself with it to the point where you actually can hold a discussion or a conversation about it. And another big thing that's I think is quite important is talking to people that you know are smarter than you or that you know more than you, because you don't have to feel, especially I think as girls or as women, it's easy to feel like you're being condescended to or like you have to prove that you're also smart. But it's okay to just sit there and sort of like listen to people talk. It can be really beneficial and helpful and teach you things just in general. So yeah, I guess that's talk to people and do as much reading as you can, I guess.
My privilege in my work is that I work with much, much smarter people than I am. I mean, much. I mean, like at the altitude. I mean, there's a huge altitude right here. So what I do, and it's a really practical thing, I get them into the room. I said, look, you have to explain to me like their grandma. I don't get it. Until I get it, then I can leave the room. And you know, this is really complicated things. How do you really do semantic search? Okay, what is that? Tell me. And then, of course, this is irritating for some of the really, I mean, machine learning scientists with PhDs and postdocs from very well-known universities. So, but you know, and then my argument is, if you are able to explain to me a non-techie, I mean, I'm understanding some of it, I have to explain to someone else, it will benefit a lot. Because then suddenly people around you, not only the techies, know what you're doing. And isn't that fascinating? And then in addition to that, I can talk about your work to some people that I hope at least might, of course much smarter than me, but at least explain it. Really get myself into the room. I do it sometimes, I mean quite often actually. Get me into it, and it's not only AI, we work so many techs. So I mean, explain me how the mobile private network works. What's that? What's the core? What's the transfer? What's the RAN? Tell me, explain me. But you know, it's really need to be humble. I always say, I'm guys, the least smart person in the room. You really need to explain me. So
I think admitting that you don't understand until you understand is a really important strategy. And I've worked a lot, I'm learning a lot from ChatGPT. I want to give you that as an advice. And my two favorite prompts are same but shorter and explain it to a 12-year-old.
yes.
And then also we've talked with Rebecca, that we've both become completely hooked on audiobooks. It's amazing what you find on Audible, on books like, some of them were recommended here, and that's something you can listen to while you go for a walk, while you drive, while you weed the garden, like I do, or whatever you do when your hands are busy, but not your mind.
Yeah, and also podcasts. There's a lot.
Podcasts.
Yeah, so I second everything. Podcasts, books, articles, and I also have super smart colleagues. I don't need to find articles myself. They send me so much stuff. So I don't know. Yeah, and talking to people for sure.
I want to ask you. So AI is moving at super speed. And a friend of mine usually reminds me, Sylvia, technology is moving so fast, but we humans are so slow at understanding, but also changing our ways. So I want to ask you a question about what are you most worried about? Then there is a follow-up question, does it motivate you or demotivate you when it comes to AI? And then my final add-on question is, can you please disagree?
With yourself? Or?
Between yourselves.
Yeah, okay.
I'd really like to see if there is something where you actually don't agree.
Yeah.
Who wants to start? You actually had some really good examples of
Thank
where
you.
AI worries you.
Yeah, in terms of ethics and the humanity aspect, that's something that really, I guess, worries me, because as it becomes more prevalent or easier to use and sort of maneuver with like deepfake technology and stuff like that, I worry about distribution of like sort of what I talked about of deepfake pornographic content and things that can be sort of weaponized to tarnish people and sort of used as almost like a scare tactic to push people back into corners. And that's sort of what worries me, I guess. The feminist, cyber-feminist lens of it is really my main concern. And I guess it does motivate me because it makes me think, well, those aren't the kind of people that should know the most about AI. It should be other people like me,
That motivates you.
I guess I'd say that.
Cool.
I find this hard to disagree with, so...
What worries me is that technology is so pervasive, and that nudging of kids, and really kids from years 3 into whatever they call still kids, because there's so pervasive use of this tech without understanding, I think, of potential consequences. So I'm really, this word nudging, I'm thinking quite a lot these days. Because if you don't understand, we actually discussed with my husband the other day, he just bought this fantastic watch that tells you how to do the fitness right, and he has the goals. And I don't care about that fitness and health that much as he does. And then he asked me, but I care about music a lot. So I said, and then we concluded that you always need a human brain and curiosity to understand what that clock does for you. And he knows so much bunch of things about that health situation, I don't care. So if I watch that, if I had that watch, super smart, AI embedded, and I just followed it, super, kind of without thinking, that's my worry. So if we're not interested as kids and human beings in other stuff, multiple stuff, music, theater, literature, I just hope that we are. That my worry that the technology over time will nudge into some decisions that we don't even understand. So this is a little bit of my worry. So be curious. I would actually bring kids and yourself to get curious outside typical, I don't want to use TikToks, but there's so many typical things kids do and games. That's my worry.
I see that you're smiling. Are we seeing a generation gap here?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think you have a lot of great points. I smiled because I agreed, or because I recognized a lot of sort of, I guess myself and also my peers and like younger people as well. I work with kids as well, so I can sort of see and sense that as well. And I definitely agree that using technology, especially when you're like growing up with it and you're surrounded by, I guess, TikTok and social media when you're young, it definitely does, I mean, infiltrate your mind and change the way you think and rearrange your thought patterns and stuff. But I also think that, like, to some degree, there can also be quite a few benefits of like consuming that short form content or knowing how to like use it in the best way possible. There's a reason that people want, or marketing firms want, younger people to sort of be their interns and create content online and not anybody, I guess, a little bit their senior, to word it delicately. So I think there's going to be an interesting array of studies conducted on people that have grown up with like sort of the TikTok generation, but I think there's also going to be a couple of interesting like positive side effects to come from it as well.
I just for Rebecca, so there is a fascinating journalist called Nicholas Carr, and he has written an article for Atlantic about 7-8 years ago called "Is Google Making Us Stupid?" And he's discussing some of these things where the worry is that, you know, Google is making information accessible in a very kind of at your fingertips, will it, you know, remove our need to remember? And one of the things that he discusses is that the younger generation is more impatient. I mean, you see that in the way that you guys watch films and what you expect from a film, but also parallel processing always. And but the question is, you know, you can do other things. So as you say, you know, you parallel process, you can find out information extremely quickly. You can use these new information tools in ways that maybe aren't as easy for us. And so I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see how you guys develop your way of working in the future. And you have to help us understand that quickly.
Yeah, because I agree, and I think it's interesting to hear your perspectives on it, because this worries me too. But I didn't grow up like that, right? We got a computer when I was quite young, but we didn't use it. I didn't have a phone that early, and so forth. So I worry about the same thing. I also read this book about, you know, memory, and that we used to remember stuff, and now we have like external memory. We just save it in our phone and our to-do list and what does that do to us? Is it a problem, or are we just using that kind of brain power for other things? I'm not sure, actually. And it's going to be very interesting to see. And yeah, it is. I guess, you know, the generation before me worried about me and all the techie stuff we grew up with. And then my generation worry about the younger people. So I really hope that your optimism kind of is what comes out of it, and that there's so many positive things that kind of our worries are pushed aside. And just because you watch these short videos, that doesn't mean that you can't also focus for longer. But yeah, I really don't know.
You guys reminded me of this really, my husband has this terrible t-shirt that says, "I don't need Google, my wife knows everything."
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if he can change it into, you know, "I don't need AI,
Yeah.
my wife knows everything." But I mean, we have people in this audience aging from 2 months, I think,
Yeah.
to a bit older. And so, so I think it's really, really nice, maybe just as a concluding remark, you know, young people will learn some of this if our schools get up to speed. I don't know if we're teaching enough AI in schools or enough data-driven business technology and everything else, but also with the speed of society, we grown-ups need environments to learn. So maybe finally, what's your recommendation to our audience when it comes to AI? What would you recommend them to do? If you can recommend maybe one thing each.
I think I'd say it's very easy to be sort of intimidated, or not intimidated in the sense of it being really cool, but scared of sort of some kind of cybernetic singularity or something when you read about like a ChatGPT thing becoming more mainstream or popularized and used. But I think the most important thing you can do is sort of familiarize yourself with the machinery and learn like what it does and how it works, just so that you have an idea of what people are talking about when you hear it become so widespread in the news and media outlets and stuff like that, just so that you're always sort of, I guess, hanging on. I guess that's sort of my strategy as well. And then maybe you find out that that's something that's really interesting and really cool and something you want to pursue and develop. And really, that's the best way for us to keep moving forward, I think.
Yeah, what can you do? Yeah, be curious. I mean, curiosity has never been a bad thing. And curiosity can mean many things. You can read stuff, you can just see how your phone works. What can you do with this? Also, think about your everyday. How much time you use for your routine tasks that you really hate, that you really don't like. And can technology change it? And it can. Typical messages you do or reporting on email or what has been said somewhere in the meetings, just think twice if you need to do it and use that really your brain power and capacity for that. So really starting with the problem you face every day and think about it, can I do something really nicer like skiing, for example, instead of that? So it's much, much cooler. So be curious, understand your problems, think, and if you cannot do, ask your colleagues around you. I'm sure they will do it for you. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I just need to second your guys', especially that part. Being curious is very important, and then and don't be afraid to just try things. As we've been talking about, there's so much material now, and I think anyone can really get started on simple things. So much like very. Low, the barrier to kind of get started or test things are so low now. So just do it today, I guess.
Get started.
Yeah.
Well, with that, I'm going to say thank you so very much.
Thank you.
To all the four of you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Now, I know it's Friday, it's 9 o'clock, and y'all want to go out to town and have some more cocktails, perhaps. But I just want to thank everybody here for coming, and of course, our very brilliant keynotes and our moderators. I couldn't help myself. It's spring, it's sun, yellow tulips. You gotta buy them. But I would also like to take just a brief moment of your time to bring your attention to the Women in AI Directory. In 2021, on the 1st of March, me and a colleague started mapping women in AI. We started with 30 women. Right now, it's 2024. We have now about 150 plus women on the directory. We've talked a lot about role models today, the importance of these role models. And I mean, this list is something that I keep, kind of pressuring into government departments, universities, organizations, but also when I go around talking to high school kids about the opportunities within AI. Because this site is very important, not only to discover experts that are female when it comes to inviting into panel discussions, and of course keynote speakers, but also incredibly important for the younger generation when it comes to showing the breadth of opportunities that actually exist within technology, what you can actually do with it. So this is an ongoing campaign. Please promote your colleagues and your peers. My email is open 24/7. Make a list, email me. And while you are collecting names on your list, please also consider nominations for the NORA Annual Awards 2024. Men are in the majority. They're further along the research path than we are, but it is incredibly important that we acknowledge and recognize the work that we have done and that we kind of help promote each other for these awards as well. It says March 12th. I'm on the committee. I'm extending it March 19th. You got some more time. And And then also, for you interested, I've also been invited to partake in the program committee for the Women in Data Science, Oslo. We will have a conference here on the 22nd of April. More information will shortly be announced on widsoslo.com. And with that, I am out of words, I am out of time. There is more food, please eat it. There's more champagne, please drink it. Have fun, and happy International Women's Day. Thank you all so much for coming.